What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here, of course, for the UFC 269 preview. We've got Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier closing out the year, and alongside that is Amanda Nunes versus Julianna Pena for the bantamweight title. Of course, it's a stacked pay-per-view, it's a stacked card. Of course, with the pandemic and the COVID era of MMA, the pay-per-views with crowds now, of course, have been more packed and more stacked than the regular fight nights. Of course, last week we had Font versus Aldo, which was absolutely fantastic fight. We had also Desire versus Brad Riddell on that card. But this one, as I think as a fan base and as a whole, we've been looking forward to see this card for 3 or 4 months. In September, I think this fight got announced. Obviously, we had 267, 268 since then. But this one was a cherry on top. Of course, we were supposed to have Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal. Unfortunately, that isn't taking place now with the Masvidal injury. But we've still got some tremendous fights. 7, 8, 9 fights that on any given night you'd want to watch. And obviously we started with the first one, which is Dustin Poirier challenging the new lightweight champion Charles Oliveira. Of course, Charles Oliveira picking up that title after beating Michael Chandler versus via TKO. Back at 262. And he put on a fantastic performance. He did get rocked in that first round, which Dustin Poirier will be taking some inspiration from, perhaps, because obviously there was some talk, and if you've been listening to previews around the media world, is that Charles Oliveira in the past, maybe questioned his heart, maybe he's questioned his will in the cage, but since then, and since his move up to lightweight in particular, he's been absolutely phenomenal, hasn't he? He's rarely put a foot wrong, and that fight against Tony Ferguson, that performance against Tony Ferguson was second to none. He absolutely dominated El Kikuchi, didn't he, across 3 rounds. That fight would have been back at 256. He choked out Kevin Lee in the first or the last fight card prior to COVID, of course. Yeah, but he's just been on an absolute run since he beat Clay Guida, beat Giagos, Jim Miller, David Timur, Nick Lentz, Jared Gordon. And he comes in tonight to face a tough veteran. Both of these veterans now, I think they've broken the record for the most fights collectively at 54 or 56 off the top of my head. I don't remember. But these two have been through the mill. They've been through their paths at 145. But they're now in their path at 155, and both of them are at the helm and the top of this division. And rightly so, of course. Khabib Nurmagomedov did retire a year ago, vacating the belt, and there was some talk about who's going to be fighting for the belt. Many thought that Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier back in January were going to be fighting for the belt. But of course, there was all the talk about trying to get Khabib to stay, try and get Khabib to have one more fight. Of course, that October, the UFC had just signed a deal with Abu Dhabi, and of course their star power in that region had just left. Now it looks like Islam Makhachev is just going to pick up the torch and continue that for them. But I think the UFC panicked with the retirement of Khabib. But since then, obviously, Conor McGregor has faded away with the 2 losses to Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, having a fantastic 2021. Maybe a win tonight would put him second for fight of the year, only to Kamaru Usman, who's had a fantastic 12 months this year. With wins over Masvidal, Burns, and of course Colby Covington, most recently. But since that loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov himself, Dustin Poirier has changed his mindset. That loss has taken him. He got so close to the mountaintop, but he fell at the last hurdle to the eagle. But this time, he went 5 rounds down. Hooker showed his heart, showed his grit. Because again, that could have been Dustin Poirier has always also been someone who could have the same sort of remarks to as you could to Charles Oliveira in terms of heart or how far can they really go. Are they able to be that guy who can get to the top 2, top 3, but never fight and pick up that title? I do think it's Dustin Poirier's moment. I think he probably should be champion already, with the caveat that fight in January with Conor should have been for the belt, in my opinion. If not, it's definitely a trilogy at 264. Of course, the sport doesn't work like that. And, he did get 2 fantastic finishes. I put more weight in that first finish of Conor McGregor than the second one, obviously due to the injury. But again, he doubled down on his poker set. Played a good face, and he came out with on trumps. And many people think that he is probably the number 1 in this division, which is unfair on Charles Oliveira, who's paid his dues in this division also. But let's have a look at the tape. 31-8 against 28-6. Charles Oliveira coming in the slightly taller of the two, with a 2-inch reach advantage and a half-inch reach leg reach advantage also. So it's going to be interesting to see how these match up. We know how good Dustin Poirier's boxing is. We know how good Charles Oliveira's jiu-jitsu is on the ground. But it's what's going to happen in between that. Who's going to have the best defense, the best for the opposition's best attack? How's Dustin Poirier going to be in the grappling position? We saw him grapple against Conor McGregor, albeit Conor McGregor is not a notorious grappler. You know, he's a striker in this division, although he's got some okay grappling. Of course, you know, Dustin Poirier's been in there with competing movement of arguably the best grappler that this sport and that division in particular has seen. So how's he going to be able to use that experience for out the cage? You know, hearing him speak with Michael Bisping, he was talking about how he's been in, you know, horrible positions on his back, having his neck being taken in the camp, and really working on that. How's Charles Oliveira been, you know, working with the boxing? Of course, he thought Michael Chandler, who's a bit of an all-rounder, he's got good wrestling and he's got good striking. He's almost somewhere between Dustin Poirier. Well, I say closer to Dustin Poirier on the spectrum than he is Charles Oliveira. He's a shorter opponent than Dustin Poirier is. I put those two in similar brackets in their styles and the way they conduct themselves also. But Dustin Poirier, it's going to be interesting to see where he wants to take this fight, because again, if you want to grapple Charles Oliveira, it's going to be a potentially tricky night. But I think Dustin Poirier is going to want to get him up against the cage with those incredible strikes and those calf kicks that he showed against Conor McGregor. And then he can stand, you know, almost face on and use those hooks and those uppercuts. You know, maybe clinch up against the fence, get some knees in there, some elbows, and make it a bit of a gritty fight. When it's gritty, I think Dustin Poirier thrives in that environment. Sometimes when it's a little too clean, a little bit too, I don't want to say blasé, but, you know, a bit coasting, I guess. I guess Dustin Poirier maybe found himself coasting in fights before, where he won't be able to coast tonight against Charles Oliveira, because, you know, Oliveira will end up taking a neck or an arm and submitting Dustin Poirier, and that'll be potentially Poirier's last chance at a title tonight. Of course, if Charles Oliveira goes on a run, we don't know. And, you know, there's Justin Gaethje in the column, and there's also, you know, Islam Makhachev or Beneil Dariush in the wings, also probably next in line after Justin Gaethje. He's probably going to see Makhachev fight for a title if he beats Dariush in September next year in Abu Dhabi. Who's that against? We don't know. I do think personally it will be against Dustin Poirier. I do believe Dustin Poirier gets the job done tonight. But let's have a look at the rankings actually. Yeah, I've got Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Dariush, Makhachev fighting, of course, next year in March, I believe. Michael Chandler coming off that loss to Justin Gaethje. He's called out smartly Conor McGregor. I always got Dos Anjos and Tony Ferguson in the wings, both at the latter ends of their careers and their reigns in this sport. Yeah, I guess you could say. I was thinking earlier, maybe Michael Chandler versus Rafael Dos Anjos could be a great fight. Equally, Conor McGregor versus Dos Anjos could be a good fight. And obviously, Tony Ferguson, you know, he sells tickets. Maybe do Conor, Tony, and Dos Anjos Chandler, or have some sort of four-man tournament between those four. And of course, you've got Greg Gillespie topping out the top 10. But to focus on the top of this division, I do think Dustin Poirier is going to get it done tonight. I think. Do I think he's going to get a finish? I'm not so sure. I'm going to predict a third round finish to Dustin Poirier. The fact that Michael Chandler clipped Charles Oliveira early in the first, I think Dustin has a bit more power. He's definitely a more clean striker than Michael Chandler is, in my opinion. And he's someone who's pretty relentless now. Of course, in favour of Michael Chandler, or against Michael Chandler, that was right at the end of the round. Had he had probably 15-20 seconds more to unload on, maybe he would have walked away with that lightweight title wrapped around his waist. But he got the first minute, or got that minute's rest, and obviously Charles Oliveira came out and stole the show tremendously well. But I think the diamond is going to be paid in full tonight and reach that pinnacle, that part where he's been so close. But I think he's going to get the belt wrapped around his waist tonight. Of course, he had the interim title wrapped around him against Max Holloway at UFC 236. But I think tonight it's time for Dustin Poirier to taste undisputed gold, as will his teammate, his American top team teammate, of course, Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes facing Julianna Pena, who's put herself into this position, really. She's 2-2 in her last war, but she was called into this fight after her last win, of course. She's had a lot of animosity towards the bantamweight champion. Maybe rolled up Amanda Nunes even. Got under the skin of Amanda Nunes, who's, probably been the loudest she's been this week, in regards of, maybe the confidence is there, having, she's a mother now. It seems like she's wholeheartedly, in this period of her life, very happy in her life and very confident in her life. We've always questioned, why isn't Amanda Nunes getting marketed a certain way? Why isn't she doing interviews? Why isn't she doing, media here and there and becoming a real superstar? 'Cause she's got that power in her. She's the Clarissa Shields without sport, and she should be on that same sort of ballpark. When her name is spoken, you should think, oh, Amanda Nunes, doubleweight, 2-weight world champion in the UFC, beat Chris Cyborg, beat Ronda Rousey, and probably going to beat Julianna Pena tonight. I don't know how smart of a game plan it is to rile up Julianna Pena, or from Julianna Pena to rile up Amanda Nunes. It's interesting because even, on Amanda Nunes' sort of calmest day, she's an absolute monster. So I think the last person who riled her up like this might have been Chris Cyborg, but I think that was just a competitive rivalry rather than, a dislike for one another potentially. Obviously, Julianna Pena, her sort of remark is that they should have fought after UFC 200 when Nunes beat Miesha Tate and became the champion. Of course, now, of course, rightfully so, Nunes, welcomed back the return of Ronda Rousey and picked up her biggest victory of their career that time, at that period of their career. Julianna Pena also believes that she's been fighting cans, with all due respect. Maybe the featherweight division isn't as populated as the bantamweight division, but I don't think you can call Megan Anderson or Felicia Spencer cans, who have been, former Innovative champions. Prior to that, she went on a run of Jermaine Durandame, Holly Holm, and Chris Cyborg. I don't think that either of those are cans. She's fought Valentina Shevchenko twice, Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey. She's got probably the best resume in women's mixed martial arts, and she's probably going to add another one to that with Julianna Pena, who's 2-2 as we mentioned, lost to Shevchenko, and Durandame beat Nico Montano and Sarah McMahon. Obviously, her sort of caveat is that she did beat Kat Zingano, the last opponent that Nunes has lost to. But I do think Nunes gets this done. And the way she sounded a bit cold, there was a reference where she said he was never a contender anyway. Yeah, I think in regards to the UFC 200 talk, and that was pretty cold from Amanda Nunes. She's quite a warm, bubbly, likeable personality. But I think if you dig at her enough times, she's gonna, she's called the lioness for a reason. She's gonna bite back, and she certainly bit back this weekend. Of course, let's have a look at the tail tape. 21-4 against 11-4, 2-inch height advantage there for Amanda Nunes. Identical reaches in the arms, and of course she's got a 2-inch leg reach advantage as well. I do think she gets the finish tonight. I think she's too powerful. I think she's too well-rounded for Julianna Pena, and I think she's going to get it done. But we've seen stranger things happen. Should Pena get the job done tonight, it does go in the ballpark of the home win, or the Nunes win, or the proper upset in this sport. And probability says, the more times Amanda Nunes wins, there's going to be a time when she comes up short, or she meets her match. But I don't think her match is tonight against Julianna Pena. I think we're probably looking at so maybe Kayla Harrison, maybe a Chris Cyborg rematch. I don't think, maybe there was talk about the Miesha Tate rematch, but obviously Miesha Tate lost to Ketlin Vieira. Ketlin Vieira could be a name that steps in the cage with her in the future, because she's running out of contenders, going down to 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the rankings now to find a fresh matchup for Igor Aspen Ladd, who never quite got into that number 1 contenders bout, and she can't make weight either. So it's a tough one, but again, I think we see Anne still tonight with Amanda Nunes, of course. And that leads us on to the rest of the card. We've got obviously Jeff Neal versus Santiago Ponzinibia. Fantastic fight in this welterweight. They've both got heavy hands, fantastic striking, both pack a punch and can knock each other out. I've gone with Jeff Neal for tonight. I think hands are still, albeit, he got into some hot water recently with some, I think, driving charges, drunk driving charges at least, by the sounds of what he was talking about, which is a question of how his camp was. He's coming off 2 losses to Neal Magny and Stephen Thompson, 2, top of the food chain in this division fighters. Prior to that, he beat Mike Perry, Nico Price, Bilal Muhammad, who's of course lying up with the rankings now. But I do think Ponzinibia, albeit is a fantastic fighter, he's one of these fighters that were tipped to go to the very top, but of course he had some poor injuries, some poor health issues, which stunted that growth, and of course he came back last. January lost to Jing Liang Li, of course, via knockout, but then he did come back and beat Miguel Bieza. But I think Jeff Neal just has slightly bit more in him. I think he has a bit more power and a bit more punch about him. And I think possibly Ponzinibia gets caught in 2 or 3, well, the second or third round. I think they have a quite evenly matched first round, and then Jeff Neal picks up the pace and lands that heavy hand on the button. And unfortunately, it's good night she wrote for Santiago Ponzinibia. But the matchup does have a good quality or good prediction maybe for fight of the night. 13-4 against 29-4. Ponzinibia, ridiculously experienced now at this point in his career, height advantage, but Jeff Neal does have a longer reach in both departments there, of course. I've gone with Jeff Neal to win this one. I think in my predictions at least, I do think he just packs a little bit more power, but it'd be good to see maybe Ponzinibia start to get back, start to build a winning streak up again and show why he was tipped to become one of the very best in this division. Someone testing out a new division is obviously Cody Garbrandt, obviously at one point the best in the bantamweight division, but he's had a tough time with it as in the past 4 or 5 years. Of course, he won that 3 consecutive knockout streak with TJ Dillashaw back to back, and obviously Pedro Munhoz is fighting Dominick Cruz tonight. He came back, knocked out Santiago, of course, and then he himself had some problems with his health. He was supposed to fight Dustin Poirier for the title down in flyweight, but he had COVID and I believe he tore a bicep muscle as well, so he had to go and sit on the shelf for a little bit. And now he's coming in against a dog in Cody Garbrandt, who's not someone you want to be testing the waters with at 125 to your first bout. Albeit it's not the most exhilarating division, but you have, of course, got Brandon Moreno, the champion, you got Figueiredo. Those two are running it back in January or February, and then you've got Askarov, which is an unreal talent, a fantastic grappler and fighter. He's at number 2. For some reason, he's not being pushed for a title shot. I don't know whether it's a marketability thing. I believe he was injured at one point, maybe when he was supposed to get a title shot. I'm not sure, but Cody Garbrandt has not got an easy job in his hands. Like Cody Garbrandt is a dog. We saw that knockout against Rogerio Bontorin back at 259. He lost to Brandon Royval before that, so he's 2-2 in his loss. So he'd lose to the champ Brandon Moreno. I'm sure he'd be itching to get that one back should he get the win tonight. I'm sort of split on this. In my bet, I've gone with Cody Garbrandt. I've edged my bets on this one, but for my UFC picks, I've gone with Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt, there were some questions about how he'd look on the scale. How is he possibly going to lose an extra 10 pounds? But Dan Hooker was saying, he's only, 2 or 3 pounds heavier. He's quite a small bantamweight, so he has a little bit more leeway to get down to 125. Of course, in the day of the UFC height is scientifically modified and planned. Nutritionists and specialists here and there saying, you can lose it here, you can lose it this way, etc., and still be at your optimal in the cage. But of course, those, his last outing was that Rob Font loss, which was quite a dominating loss from Rob Font, who boxed him, boxed the jab off him for 5 rounds. So how is that chin at 125? How is that gas tank at 125? Can he still carry down that power to 125? Because I do think if he connects with Cody Garbrandt is in trouble. And similar, these two both have that tendency to, once they take a knock, they go straight running in and almost make it 2 times, 3 times difficult for themselves. So it could be similar to the Pedro Munhoz fight, whereas Cody Garbrandt might be winning the first 2 rounds, knocks Cody Garbrandt, gets a bit too excited, and these two start trading. And I think that's why it's so tough to predict who's going to win this one, because I do think one of these two are going to make a big leap in the fight, but ultimately that might be their demise also. And I do think one of these two get performance tonight. But whoever wins, could be looking at a title shot next. But again, I think that would be rough on Askarov in this division. Of course, you've got Perez in this division also. And Pantoja, of course, who's number 3 in this division. So I think if Cody Garbrandt wins, he probably gets it because of the name value and probably a highlight reel knockout. He's the bantamweight champion, he carries that extra weight with him. But I think if Cody Garbrandt, I'd like to see him against Perez, Pantoja, and Askarov before he jumps straight into a title shot. But again, both of these two are names in this division. Of course, you've got Josh Emmett versus, prior to that, you got Sean O'Malley versus Raulian Paiva. Of course, Sean O'Malley, this Sugar Show's back, opening up the main card of the pay-per-view shows, which is where he's valued and rated, coming off that win against Thomas Almeida. The Portuguese fella. I forgot his name off the top of my head. Moutinho, of course. That vicious fight where it probably should have been stopped a round or two earlier, maybe got a corner involved. Chris Moutinho, of course. Prior to that was a knockout of Thomas Almeida where he made that basketball walk-off celebration. Of course, prior to that he lost to Marlon Vera, so he's 4-1 in his last 5. He's going to be itching to get that one back with Marlon Vera. I think if he wins tonight, he might call out Marlon Vera. Of course, he faced off Cody Garbrandt, so if Cody Garbrandt loses tonight, or maybe wants to go out to 135. I think there's a fight there between those two waiting to happen, and it'd be a fun fight also. Both of them big names, big star value, and of course, everyone's asking for Sean O'Malley to make that step up to a ranked opponent, and there'd be no better way to start than a win with Cody Garbrandt, who's I think 5th or 6th in this division currently. Unfortunately for Paiva, I think it's a bit more than he can chew right now, but again, he's come up from flyweight, so he's a smaller guy than Sean O'Malley naturally. But again, Marlon Vera showed that this guy isn't indestructible, isn't undefeatable. But who knows? But I do think Sean O'Malley gets the job done tonight, and that moves us on nicely to the prelims and what I think is going to be the fight of the night is Josh Emmett versus Dan Ige. I can't believe this one is on the prelims. 16-2. Josh Emmett coming back after that win against Shane Burgos back in June 2020. He's had a year, 18 months out, and I think he tore two ligaments in his knee, both in the ACLs, LCLs, etc. He's had a ridiculous injury list since that fight. Of course, Shane Burgos since then has fought Edson Barboza. I think he's had 3 fights since that loss to Josh Emmett. 2 fights. He lost to Edson Barboza, fired that knockout, that crazy delayed knockout that he suffered, then Billy Quarantillo who beat at 268. So Josh Emmett's going to want to come back and show why he's ranked 7th in this division. Obviously, you've got Arnold Allen in this division. You've got Dan Hooker coming down. Dan Hooker versus Josh Emmett would be an absolute cracking fight. You've got the Korean Zombie in there. You've got, of course, Brian Ortega, Rodriguez coming off losses. So we're going to be looking for a fight. So a win tonight for both Danny Ige and Josh Emmett would be phenomenal. I've gone with Josh Emmett for this one. I think he's got a little bit more toughness than Danny Ige. And I think he might be able to take a few more punches and strikes off Danny Ige than Josh Emmett. Then Danny Ige can take off Josh Emmett. I think if Josh Emmett rings his bell 2 or 3 times, we're in for a good night for Josh Emmett. But I do think this goes 3 rounds. I do think it gets the night bonus. I do think Josh Emmett comes out the victor of the 2 and probably calls out Yair Rodriguez or welcome Dan Hooker to this division. Obviously, you got Giga Chikadze already matched up with Calvin Kattar. So yeah, maybe Josh Emmett versus the Korean Zombie or Dan Hooker. Welcome Dan Hooker to this division. But Danny Ige is tough. Also, it's a cracking fight for that feature prelims. If you're tuning into the UFC for the first time tonight, and you pick this fight to step up from, you're going to be talking about a fantastic fight for years to come. It's an incredible night of fights, and the fact that this is just a featured prelim, probably is a more of a compliment to them than it is a negative or a drawback or an insult, just because that spot does get more eyes. As Dominick Cruz has mentioned many times, it doesn't matter where it almost doesn't matter where you fight. Personally, I think if your main event, co-main event, and your featured prelim is probably the top 3 places. Get the most marketing, get the most eyes on you in a featured prelim, especially for the pay-per-view, because it's the last chance that anyone gets of watching a free broadcast or a minimal feed broadcast at a monthly rate. Whereas you got to pay for the pay-per-view, at least in the States. Of course, in the UK, we get provided within our subscription fees with BT Sport. But you got Pedro Munhoz versus Dominick Cruz, and I like what the Fight Disciples and Nick P and Adam Catterall and the BT guys, with Biss being involved in that group, have been saying. It's almost a loser pack your bag sort of thing with Pedro Munhoz, coming off that loss to Jose Aldo, beat Jimmy Rivera, but he's 1-3 in the last 4 with losses to Frankie Edgar and Aljamain Sterling. But obviously Dominick Cruz coming back after that long layoff. He did beat by split decision Casey Kenny, Of course, before that, he'd lost to Henry Cejudo in a title fight. So both of these still almost on their last legs for any title aspirations, or you know, going into that contention maybe. But Dominick Cruz, a former champion, he does have that name value over Pedro Munhoz. It'd be, if Dominick Cruz could win tonight, he does have that ability to say, I was a former champion, let me fight for the belt. Then we go fight Sandhagen. Cruz and Sandhagen were meant to fight back at 249, I believe, or the main event in May prior to COVID, and of course Cruz got the title shot against Cejudo. So maybe we can revisit that path with Sandhagen coming off 2 losses to TJ Dillashaw and Petr Yan. I do think Dominick Cruz gets it done, but it would be quite interesting, of course. The biggest talking point this week was the beef between DC and Dominick Cruz after Dominick Cruz said, he mutes DC's commentary because he doesn't do his homework. He's very adamant about John Anik doing his homework. And we all know John Anik's, one of the best in the business and an absolute workaholic, and he does his research, second to none, better than anyone, I guess, in this sport. But, there's some qualms about DC on the microphone. I personally like him. I think he's quite an entertaining fighter and entertaining personality, which, he won Personality of the Year last night. I think he's quite an entertaining guy to have on the mic. He lightens the mood a little bit. You don't have to have 3 analytical minds, and that you can have John Anik, who is quite a neutral, quite a well-developed, and, he's. I think he's my favourite guy, probably other than, you got Brad Wharton and Daniel Strauss and Dan Hardy at Cage Warriors that's just taking place. They are fantastic. You've got Sean O'Connell in PFL doing fantastic work also, but I think John Anik is the cherry on top at the moment when it comes to broadcasting. You got Joe Rogan, you got Michael Bisping doing fantastic things, you got Paul Felder, who's fantastic, you got Dominick Cruz, who does a good job on the mic. Michael Chiesa is a fantastic analytical mind as well, it seems, more so on the ESPN broadcast desk than cage side. Laura Sanko is doing a fantastic job. So yeah, we are almost spoiled for choice when it comes to commentators and analytical minds when it comes to broadcasting. I think it was a little wrong for Cruz, but it was a smart tactic for Cruz because everyone was speaking about it. No one was really talking about Poirier and Oliveira or Nunes or Sean O'Malley. Everyone was focused on Dominick Cruz and giving Dominick Cruz attention. So it might be the best work of all time. I'm not entirely sure. If he was, he might have read Daniel Cormier that day, been pissed off, cutting weight or being tired of media, and he just said it off the cuff, not realizing what the snowball effect would be. I saw the clips from DC on his YouTube channel with DC, Cruz, and Bisping, and it seems like they ended it on good terms, with Bisping sort of mediating that sort of whole conversation. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think it'd be interesting if Pedro Munhoz wins, if DC uses that moment to retaliate, going, Dominick Cruz, you probably should have watched more tape on your opponent or something like that. You can tell that there's going to be sort of quips and jokes from DC if Pedro Munhoz wins tonight. But I do think Dominick Cruz gets the job done, which leaves Pedro Munhoz in a sticky situation in the division. I think he's 10 maybe? 9 or 10 in this division. Let's see. Pedro Munhoz 8th in this division. Obviously, Dominick Cruz number 9. So maybe get Cruz as Garbrandt 2. You got the Lee in there. You got Robertson coming off the loss. Corey Sandhagen couldn't come off the loss. So winner tonight probably face the Dallas or Robertson or Sandhagen. Obviously, Aldo and Dillashaw are going to fight for that number 1 contenders bout while we wait for Petr Yan and Sterling to get their business done with. But yeah, if Pedro Munhoz loses tonight, you put him in the bracket with Martin Moraes, going, you're probably not going to get a title shot here. You're going to be somewhere in this division rocking about. You're going to be someone who, Sean O'Malley is used to promote themselves off of maybe, which would be unfair for Pedro Munhoz, because again, that win over Cody Garbrandt, a highlight win, and he was having some highlight moments. It's just unfortunately he's in that period now where he's winning and losing, not being able to string 2, 3, 4 fights together. Of course, you've got Augusto Sakai versus Tai Tuivasa, the king of the shoeies, back in the octagon tonight against Augusto Sakai. I do think Tai Tuivasa gets it done. He's a very fun fighter to watch, isn't he? Great, what's the word? Character in the sport, a great talker in the sport, a very funny guy. Augusto Sakai, of course, has the ability to cut, not being a boring fight, being quite a static fight that drags out. You can go the 3 rounds. He lost to Rosenstruck in his last fight and Alistair Overeem. So he comes back on 2 knockout losses. But prior to that, he won a split decision against Blackboy Ivanov, knocked out Marcin Tybura split decision against Arlovsky. And he had consecutive finishes against Chase and Marcos Conrado Jr. and Thiago Cardoso. But I do think Tai Tuivasa gets it done tonight. I think I'm a fan of Tuivasa. I want to see him do another Shui, to be honest. It's a good heavyweight belt. It's a tasty position in this belt as well, because I think there's going to be a lot of violence as this card plays out at the moment. He's coming to that win against Greg Hardy, Harry Hunsucker, and Stephen Struve. So he's on a winning streak, or free fight win streak of knockouts. He was dropped at one point, wasn't he? I think he got released after the Stephen Struve fight, and got brought back for Harry Hunsucker fight on short notice, I believe. Or maybe he got released at Spivak and came back for Stephen Struve. But I know there's a period where he wasn't in the UFC, and it was a quick turnaround fight that they called him back up for, I believe. But he seems to be at a good place right now. As my PC starts to crash, I apologise. Yeah, so let us know in the comments down below, Dustin Poirier or Charles Oliveira. Who are you backing for that? Who do you think gets it done? Could we see? I know Dustin Poirier's been talking about not retiring for 2, 3, 4 years, but if he picks up the belt, maybe he won't retire, because obviously the pay-per-view points, etc. The beneficial side of becoming a champion, he's probably got a year left. You get the running back with Justin Gaethje. Maybe a Conor McGregor fight. Conor McGregor can pick up a win in 22. Because I don't think Conor McGregor deserves a title shot. If he gets a win, the name value and the whole situation with how that ended in the trilogy, I think the UFC and Dana White would certainly be licking their lips at giving Conor McGregor another shot, a fourth shot again with Dustin Poirier, and that time for the title. It could potentially happen. Obviously, you've got Makhachev, maybe Poirier could be a good scrapper also. But equally, Charles Oliveira, I said my piece on this. I do think Dustin Poirier gets it done tonight. But if Charles Oliveira wins, that puts him in a fantastic position for 2022. As we return, of course, it looks like Ryan Hall is putting good work on Derek Mina. We've got Gillian Robertson, choked out Priscilla Cachoeira. Of course, we've got Bruno Silva versus Jordan Wright. We've got Andre Muniz versus your boy Eric Anders. I've gone with Eric Anders. They've got Aaron Blanchard versus Miranda Maverick. Fantastic fight there for the 125ers. We've got Ryan Hall, Darren Mina right now. And I'm not sure what's happened with Randy Costa. I think Randy Costa did lose to Tony Kelly. I'm not too sure. He lost second round TKO. So we're on Ryan Hall, Darren Mina now. It's crazy that this fight has got Ryan Hall on the early prelims. Of course, he didn't have a great fight last time out, but it just shows you the strength of this card. And Miranda Maverick too. I think she'll be on the main card of the fight night event. But yeah, early prelims for them tonight. Same with Eric Anders. Wasn't too long ago he was co-main eventing fights, etc. He's coming off those wins against Dan Stewart. But yes, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Make sure to put your comments and your predictions down in the comments down below. Poirier or Oliveira, Nunes or Julianna Pena. Sean O'Malley is going to get a win. Is he going to continue that streak? Cody Garbrandt, how is he going to be at flyweight? Is he going to get the win tonight? Is he going to get set back to the 135-pound division, perhaps, with his tail between his legs? What's your fight of the night prediction? Mine is Josh Emmett versus Dan Ige. But yes, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to drop us a follow on social media at CageChat MMA. On Instagram, we're almost on 500 followers there, so it'd be great to get that. Of course, before the new year, CageChat MMA on Twitter and Facebook also. And yes, I'll see you guys on the next video.